Turks have said this, that they knew for 6 months ago what was happening in Idlib. And as I've said to you, the Iranians were warning Assad about this, even some months before it happened. And many of these forces that were engaged in this uprising, or this coup, if you like, were in fact American trained, connected with America. The ones in the south, particularly from Al-Tanaf in the south, that came up from the south, were American trained groups. And this, I think, I think that clearly Israel knew what was going on, and quite clearly they knew what was happening, because on the last day of the ceasefire, the very last day of the ceasefire, they bombed all the crossings into Syria. And they did that so that Hezbollah couldn't cross into Syria and support Assad or support the Syrian forces, as they had been during the civil war. Hezbollah played a critical role. And they were there, in fact, in smaller numbers until just very recently, when they evacuated their last forces from Syria. Did Netanyahu know? Of course he knew. And of course, I mean, it was no coincidence that the ceasefire came at the point at which they expected the supply lines across Syria would be terminated, which they were. And so, yes, they knew that, and they're very happy about it. At the moment, Israel is in a rhapsody of excitement at what's happened at Syria going, and seeing this as part of the new Middle East, and everything has changed. The resistance has been broken, and now Lebanon has been, if you like, attacked. Now Syria, next Iraq, and just to be clear, I mean, Israel has been bombing massively Syria in these last days, bombing their defense, bombing their military airports, bombing their weapons bases. I mean, dropping bunker busters bomb across Syria to destroy all its military infrastructure, just so that for the future it will be incapacitated to defend itself or to take any military action at all. Small elements of the Syrian forces did escape into and took armored vehicles and tanks into Iraq. But basically it's been disarmed by Israel in these last days as a consequence of the fall of Assad.
Alastair Crooke paints a vivid picture of the geopolitical developments surrounding Syria, revealing a complex web of actions, interests, and forewarnings that have culminated in a significant power shift. According to Crooke, the unraveling of Syria and the weakening of its resistance were not sudden or unforeseen events. Key players, including Turkey, Iran, and Israel, were aware of the developments leading up to the crisis, and many actively shaped its trajectory. Crooke highlights that the Turks had knowledge of the unfolding events in Syria as far back as 6 months prior to the coup attempt. Iran, too, had been warning Syrian President Bashar al-Assad well in advance. These warnings, however, were not enough to prevent the eventual disintegration of Syria's defensive posture. The forces involved in this coup or uprising were notably linked to external powers, particularly the United States. Crooke underscores that many of these groups, especially those advancing from the south, were American-trained. This connection hints at a broader strategy involving the U.S., aimed at destabilizing Syria and undermining Assad's government. Israel's role in these events is particularly striking. Crooke asserts that Israel was not only aware of the situation but also acted decisively to shape its outcome. On the final day of the ceasefire, Israel bombed critical crossings into Syria, effectively severing supply lines that Hezbollah could have used to support Syrian forces. Hezbollah, which had played a vital role in bolstering Assad's regime during the civil war, had already scaled back its presence in Syria. This move by Israel ensured that Assad would face the coup attempt without the critical support of his longtime allies. The timing of the ceasefire's collapse appears to have been calculated. Israel's actions were not coincidental but rather strategic, aimed at disabling Syria's resistance capabilities at a critical juncture. Crooke describes Israel's current state as one of rapture over these developments, viewing them as a pivotal moment in the creation of a new Middle East. For Israel, the perceived breaking of Syria's resistance is a significant victory, one that reshapes the regional balance of power. However, this victory has come at a severe cost to Syria. In recent days, Israel has conducted extensive bombing campaigns across Syria, targeting its military infrastructure with devastating precision. Using bunker-buster bombs, Israel has destroyed military airports, weapons depots, and other critical defense installations. These actions aim to render Syria incapacitated, stripping it of its ability to defend itself or engage in future military actions. Some remnants of the Syrian military managed to escape into Iraq, taking armored vehicles and tanks with them. Yet, as Crooke notes, the bulk of Syria's military capacity has been neutralized. This disarmament leaves Syria vulnerable, not only to external aggression but also to further internal destabilization. Crooke places these events within a broader regional context. He suggests that the dismantling of Syria's resistance is part of a larger strategy targeting other countries in the region. Lebanon, having already faced significant pressures, is seen as another step in this campaign, with Iran potentially next in line. The systematic targeting of these nations reflects a calculated effort to reshape the Middle East in a way that favors certain powers while undermining those that have traditionally resisted Western and Israeli influence. The implications of these developments are profound. For Israel, the weakening of Syria represents a strategic victory, removing a key adversary and altering the regional power dynamic. For the broader Middle East, however, it signals a period of heightened instability and uncertainty. The destruction of Syria's military infrastructure and the potential targeting of other nations suggest that the region is entering a new and turbulent phase. Crooke's analysis underscores the interplay of foresight, strategy, and power in shaping these events. While some actors, like Turkey and Iran, issued warnings and attempted to mitigate the crisis, others, notably Israel, capitalized on the situation to advance their strategic objectives. The fall of Assad and the dismantling of Syria's resistance mark a turning point, not just for Syria but for the entire region. As Crooke notes, this is a moment of profound change, one that will have far-reaching consequences for the Middle East and beyond. According to Alastair Crooke, the Turks have said that they knew about this situation in Italy 6 months ago. As I mentioned earlier, the Iranians had been warning Assad about it even months before it happened. Many of the forces involved in this uprising, or coup, if you prefer, were American-trained and had connections to the United States. Specifically, those from the South, particularly from Al-Tanf, were part of American-trained groups. It seems clear that Israel was aware of what was going on. On the very last day of the ceasefire, they bombed all the crossings into Syria to prevent Hezbollah from crossing over to support Assad or the Syrian forces. During the Syrian civil war, Hezbollah played a critical role in bolstering Assad's forces. Although their presence had diminished over time, their final contingents left Syria only recently. Did Netanyahu know? Of course he did. It's no coincidence that the ceasefire coincided with the termination of supply lines across Syria, which were effectively cut. Israel is now openly celebrating these developments, viewing them as a significant victory and a step toward a new Middle East. They see the resistance in Syria as broken, with Lebanon already targeted, Syria now incapacitated, and Iran potentially next. In recent days, Israel has been bombing Syria extensively, targeting its defenses, military airports, and weapons facilities. They've deployed bunker-buster bombs across Syria, effectively dismantling its military infrastructure to ensure it cannot defend itself or mount any military action in the future. While small elements of the Syrian forces managed to escape into Iraq with armored vehicles and tanks, the Syrian military has been effectively disarmed as a direct result of Israel's actions and the fall of Assad. Thanks for watching.